Hello. How are we doing? Wait, sorry. Okay. Hello, everyone. Oh, there's Alberto Rosende.
Hey man, long
Hello.
time no see.
I know. Wow, I feel like I haven't talked to you in a long time.
I know, man. It's longer than it's been for us.
I know. 5 minutes? No, 3 minutes?
3 minutes, 3 minutes, and a second place finish on Fortnite, I think, is pretty solid.
It's pretty good. It's not the worst, not the
Especially because
best,
we're both over level 100 now. So and as is Tessa. So it's
and
all business.
and over the age of 16. So our experience level is naturally going to go down.
Right.
Um, Great. Oh, hey, Jan.
Hey Janet.
Okay, wow, we have people coming in. Once we maybe wait another minute and then I'll start. We have a message from Janet. So that's gonna be great.
Awesome.
Um,
Awesome. Looking forward to
and
that.
gotta get the room orged. Wow, how do
I had a hair on my laptop screen that was like right across your face. So you
Oh
had
no,
a
that's
little
just
mustache.
that's actually there. Um, all right. I'm just gonna start, I think, with Janet's video. So welcome everyone. Thanks for joining us. My name is Josh McCataraman. I was a student at the Florida Children's Theater, formerly Fort Lauderdale Children's Theater. I graduated in 2012. This right here, I'm sure you don't know him. His name's Alberto Rosende. You can introduce yourself. I'm sorry for.
I was a student at Florida Children's Theater with Josh when I was in high school, and I graduated in 2011 from the theater
Cool. So I
information.
think what a lot of people are wondering right now is what is the Florida Children's Theater? So let me um, play this video from our executive artistic director.
Oh, can you start it over?
Oh, yeah. Sorry, I'll play that there.
Can you hear, Josh?
Yeah, can you not?
I cannot, but that's probably just because I'm on the bottom.
Oh,
Oh, okay, no. Hey, Ben, what's up? And Ben says there's no audio.
oh. Can you hear that?
Do you have this
Uh,
statement written?
what?
Do you have it written down, what she said?
I don't. Um,
No
well,
sound,
you
no
know what?
sound.
I'll speak for Janet like she would want me to. Um, Okay, so for those that don't know, FLCT is Florida Children's Theater, formerly the Fort Lauderdale Children's Theater, as I mentioned. It's a nonprofit organization. It serves children and families across South Florida. It's the oldest documented children's theater in the state of Florida. And just like Apple, FLCT was founded by two mothers in a garage back in 1952. For context, that was the same year microwaves became available for households. So, just so you know. All right, so you and I met at FLCT. We were in a production of Les Miserables.
Mm-hmm.
Les Miserables. Les Mis.
Les Mis, why not?
And so we were in that production, but at the same time we realized we went to the same school, and we didn't actually realize that until we were sitting in the football locker room together.
Yep.
Which I think is interesting because a lot of people that I've met aren't, doing theater, playing sports, kind of involved in all of that. But I think it's sort of I don't know. It's a unique perspective. But since then, it's been 10 years that we have been friends.
Dude, we've known each other for a decade?
Yeah.
That's awesome.
But, it started the first year. So when you were at Florida Children's Theater, what were some of your favorite roles, some of your favorite memories, stuff like that?
Okay. Whew. All right. Well, firstly, I actually joined the theater later than I think most people tend to. Most people find the theater as like younger kids, like when maybe middle school or even elementary school, because of like the wide range of classes and shows that FLCT does. I had seen shows there, but I didn't audition until my sophomore year for Les Miserables. After that, I think I was in like 5 or 6 shows at FLCT, maybe 7, like somewhere less than 10 for sure. But I got to do really good, like cool roles there. Les Miserables was great. I played Marius, and then Aida, I played Radames, and then the summer show when we all did Hairspray, I was Link. So those are the top 3. But then I think the Ghost of Christmas Present comes in there too.
Oh,
we had a lot of fun.
That's got to be considered.
Mm-hmm.
Cool. Well, I'm pretty sure I was in every show.
You were in every show. We did every show together. Yeah.
Yeah, we were a package deal. The Children's Theater knew that to cast one also meant
Always.
the other. Yeah, it was on our contract. Cool. So, what would you say when you were at FLCT? What about Glee? So Charlie.
That was a lot of fun too.
When you were at FLCT, what would you say that you learned about yourself as an actor? And then there's a second part. Well, as an actor, and then the second part will be as a person. But you can start with an actor.
Okay. I think those two tend to go hand in hand. When you grow as a person, you grow as an actor. And if you grow as an actor, most of the time, you kind of grew as a person as well. Well, FLCT was one of the places that I think pursuing theater as more than a hobby or just something that I love to do became that pursuit became more than that. It was the first time I was hearing conversations about it as not only just like a really cool profession, but also something that was very important for the world, to share art and through art educate and help and learn and grow. I remember that was one of the cool things. I remember with Aida, I was super lucky to be directed by Janet in that one. And one of the things that we talked about were like, how can we, as people living in 2011, connect to something that was set in ancient Egypt? So what are the themes that are coming through that are still very important today? So how did I grow as a person? I don't know. I found that confidence in my craft, in saying like, yes, I want to be an artist. That's a very difficult step I find to take, to recognize that that's where you feel like your place is, to be an artist. I met a lot of my friends that were still friends. You know what I mean? It was probably the most important place for me in high school was that theater.
Yeah, I agree. I'd say the same for me. Do you think, I guess I asked that because, for me, I think theater in general, but, especially obviously FLCT, like, it's sort of like you said, it makes you so much more confident. I think, when we start at age 15, we started doing shows together, like, obviously we had done theater before that, but, like, obviously those are, like, the most important developmental years of your life, really. So, like, I think to be given that chance to be confident is so good.
And then also to like and one of the things about the theater just generally is it's such an accepting, loving, supportive group. So maybe you're not an actor, but you're a part of the theater because you have a group of people that support you and force you to challenge yourself by getting up on stage and singing and doing things that maybe you're not as comfortable doing, or I lost my train of thought there.
That's
sorry.
Okay, I think they get the point.
Cool.
Okay, so then I guess we sort of just covered it. I was gonna say, what do you feel like the value of theater and the arts in general for kids and young adults? I think. Yeah. Okay, so I think in some ways, theater gives you a sort of looking glass into how other people live, whether it's around the world,
Hmm.
through time, or even in your own neighborhood. Um, how do you feel like how do you feel like theater made you like change the way you looked at the world?
Oh, that's really well. The coolest thing that you have to do in theater is, well, first you audition and you kind of put yourself out there. Like, you know, you literally have to be like, I can do this. Let me show you. And then they have to say, we think you're good for this role. And then after that process, you start diving into who this person that you're supposed to be portraying on stage or film is. Like, where did they grow up? What were the things that made them think the way they think? How do they like their coffee? Even like little things that give you an illusion to like how this person lives their daily life,
Yeah.
right? And in that, you learn so much about other people. You learn so much about. Sometimes you have to learn about other cultures. Like if you do, let's say you're doing Aida, a period piece. Well, that's not really. I don't know. Let's pretend you're doing a period piece, something set in the year like 1800. Well, the relationships between people were different at that time. The way people talked about the world was different at that time. You know, people couldn't travel as quickly, so going far away was a big deal. And you also have just like the roles people had in society were different, and also the things they talked about were different. People wouldn't talk about like what the new Drake album was in
Yeah.
1800, right?
Yeah.
They talk about what art was happening then or what politics were affecting them then if they had the privilege to do so. So like I feel like I'm giving a really long-winded answer to say like at the fundamental core of being an actor is trying to understand another person. And sometimes that doesn't mean you agree with them, but you have to be able to see the world they do, even if it's to say that I don't agree with this person seeing the world this way, but I can see why they do. And that ability to kind of seek that compassion and understanding in other people translates to that ability, I think, in the real world. When you see people that maybe you don't agree with politically or you don't agree with other religiously or whatever your things are, if you have that understanding, you're like, well, people are people and people think a certain way and care about certain things for very specific reasons. It just naturally makes the world a little bit more accessible, I think.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I agree, and I think, like you said, it is so applicable to the real world. And I think,
Mm-hmm.
you had your documentary where you sort of were um, hearing voices, like hearing people.
That's exactly what like we've discovered in the documentary. Like everyone we met, their goal of eventually reaching a place where we're working to make the country better for everyone was the same. But the ways in which they thought we needed to do it were different. For John the farmer, his whole thought process was all about agriculture and how if you can't feed the people, how can you do anything else, right? And then there are other people that have a completely different point of view because they live in a city and have never been on a farm. So yeah, sorry, my cat just like jumping all over the place. Please don't do that.
Um, okay, so for me, looking at your career, um, you did theater in high school, obviously, both at Florida Children's Theater and at our high school. You went to NYU, and then, pretty quickly after you graduated, obviously, at Shadowhunters. In terms of the average actor's timeline, that's pretty fast. Like
Yeah, yeah.
can you walk us through like the actual work you had to go through to make that happen while you're in school, like plays, student films, waiting tables, whatever it was, like.
Yeah. Well, it's funny because like it's a long process, man. Like that's another thing. I know that I'm very lucky in the sense that this doesn't happen frequently. Most like the process that I've not only been told about, but that I've seen my friends go through and are still going through is it's little by little, baby steps until eventually you get that bigger job and then a bigger job and then you get a bigger, and then it looks like a nice, a steady incline. But that's the thing about this career is that you can go from auditioning for one job to working on a professional set and having to be a lead on that show, and they just trust you. The process was interesting. I went to NYU because I wanted to put myself in the best position to then graduate. I wanted to learn as much as I can And I wanted to study with other people that I felt were like-minded. And that's what I think university and education does in general. It's amazing to learn, but it's even more amazing to learn with a group of people who also want to learn what you're learning and are asking questions because of their backgrounds that you haven't thought of. So I learned, I think, just as much, if not more, from my classmates than I did my teachers and classes. And that was awesome. I met other actors and other filmmakers and writers, and it was just wanting to learn more, really. Being, okay, I want to get on a film set because I've never worked on a film. A friend of mine was shooting a student film, and I needed a partner for the scene that they were doing, and they asked me. So I was like, hell yeah, I'll do that. And then because of that, I worked with that director who asked me to do another thing. And then I met someone on his set and then just from wanting to learn that first time, it grew into me working on films and discovering that I wanted to do film work and work in television and film and focus more on that skill set. And then I think also I was very objective when I got to my junior year. And actually pretty much since the beginning, I knew the goal was to graduate and hopefully get representation as quickly as I can, which for everyone that doesn't know, it means like get an agent or a manager, the people that send you to auditions and help get you seen by people who will give you jobs. And I knew that every other kid in the country that was studying at a university to become an actor in May would graduate, and then they would either go to New York or LA and attempt to find representation. And the problem is May is right at the end of pilot season. So maybe people are looking to take new clients on, but it's just at the end of it, everyone wants to calm down for a bit and then it'll pick up. So I knew that it was going to be difficult. So I planned my entire university career to graduate early so that I wouldn't graduate in May with everyone else. I'd graduate in December. And then before pilot season, I could be saying, hey, pilot season's coming up. You don't have to represent me, but I'm someone that you could send out for stuff. Like we could work together. And then the class that I was actually taking in December before I graduated was taught by the person who ended up becoming my manager. She was leaving the school to become a manager. I had met her as a student, and she's like, hey, I know you're graduating in December. I'm actually going to stop teaching in December and become a full-time manager, and I'd like you to become one of my first clients. So then, because of her, I met an agent, and then, because that's what managers help do. We can talk about that later if you want. But I took steps that I thought just made sense, and it worked out, and I stuck to the plan. Yeah, a man of the plan. But I stuck to it, and it happened to work out. And I agree, I made a promise to Janet and my parents that I was gonna graduate. So that was another thing that I think people try when they go to New York. They're like, oh, I'm gonna go to New York and I'm gonna study at NYU or at Pace or another great school, and then hopefully I start working. And I'm like, well, I wanted to commit to training and then work after. So I just happened to get really lucky that I graduated early and then got this job. Yeah. And I recognize that it was like, to this day, it still shocks me because you don't see it that often where someone graduates and then within 6 months has a job as a series regular. That's just ridiculous. And I admit it makes no sense. But at the same time, I got really lucky. But I've always been told that luck is when preparation meets opportunity. I had studied with friends and I had done what I had to do to learn my craft. And I got the opportunity where they're like, can you prove it? I was like, okay. But then we talked about this a bit. I experienced that tremendous like fear and anxiety where you're like, oh my gosh, I just got a job, but I've never done this before. I've been on set one time, a professional set once, and I had 7 lines. So now I'm like, I'm going to be in every episode of this show. And can I do this? I am so nervous, and everyone seems to think I can. And they even asked me, they were like, comedy, do you want to do, your role would be more comedic. Have you done comedy before? And I lied straight through my teeth. I was like, absolutely, done a lot of comedy. And they're like, well, that's great. And then I walked out of that room thinking, oh my gosh, I have to learn so much. But I was thankfully talking to one of my friends that I studied with after I got the job, because like we were all in that first few months of getting agents and doing things. And, right. And she was the one that really, her name was Kristen. She really knocked me down and was like, hey, your ability to worry about if you can do this or be worried about that, that's already gone. That's in the past because you already got the job. So now you just have to do it. And that's actually one of the most important things about the craft and the career that I've noticed is like there's so much preparation you can do. There's so much there's so much you can do, but at the end of it, you have to just commit. You have to just dive in and be like, I'm going to do my best. And it's a learning process. And because we're playing people, people are always learning and growing. And
yeah,
I don't know. It was preparation, planning, but I also got that opportunity, and I happened to be lucky.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it sounds like also you know, I think whether you're pursuing acting, whatever it is, like, I feel like you really took advantage of networking and talking to people and, you know, saying yes to your friends and things like that just kind of put you out there. Obviously, it was kind of what you said, like, I mean, it was some great luck, but you prepared yourself. But I think meeting people and working with people and I don't know, it seemed like
I was talking to a friend about this, and everyone talks about networking. And if you imagine going to a friend of yours is a director and he has a party at his house, and if you show up there and everyone's networking, it feels, that word always to me felt very superficial.
right.
Very like, I'm here to use you. Nice to meet you. Which, like, at the end of the day, if you want to break it down, that can be it. But I think for me, I like the words you use are important. Like, we believe words have power. So I like to say connected rather than networking, because I'm not just trying to like see how I'm trying to use you. I'm also trying to find out what type of artist you are. Like, what work have you done? Can I go watch it? Can I learn from your work? Can I connect to you and to the way you look at the world and the stories you want to? So when someone feels like they connected to you, that opportunity tends to kind of grow a lot more, because they're like, oh, this is a person that vibes with me. And in this industry, it's not as glamorous as you can sometimes think. You're on set for 12 hours, sometimes more, 16 if it's not a great day. And you're doing sometimes the same scene, as many setups as they want. A setup is every time they move the camera, for anyone that doesn't know. So if you ever watch a movie, you'll notice that whenever the scene starts, it's a big, what we call an establishing shot, to kind of say, hey, we're at FLCT. Then they'll do another establishing shot to say, we're not just at FLCT, we're in Janet's office. And then it'll be a medium shot to show you who's involved in the scene. And then by the time the lines are important, like what the scene's really about, then it'll come up to a close-up. So, why was I talking about this? God, I keep losing my train of thought, man. Why was I talking about this, dude? This is really important. Networking, connecting. Then I'm talking about the different setups of scenes. I completely lost my train of thought, man. I'm so sorry.
No, it's fine. I forgot where we started too. I think we get the point. We get it. But no, I think what you're saying, like, you know, working with different people and people have different perspectives, and I think one of the biggest takeaways from that is, like, yes, of course you're networking, but if you are generally, you know, interested in the people you're meeting and consider the fact that everyone has some other perspectives, some other experience, even, you know, where you are now in your career, there's still, from what I imagine, like, a lot of people to meet, and I'm sure the people that you work with
all the time,
Chicago Fire 6 or 7 seasons in, are much different than your cast from Shadowhunters.
Yeah, and it's also just like a completely different part of the show. Like, when I got, so Shadowhunters, it was a lot of some of us had worked and had done other things. I was very new, and a lot of us, it was really our first big show. And so the learning process was all the same for us, essentially. We were learning to work together. We were learning how to be on a set, and then also the responsibility of being a lead on a set, because that's another thing. You kind of help set the tone for how other actors behave, and then also how actors are treated and how to treat other people. It's something that you learn, and I was lucky enough to be around people that taught me that. And then Chicago Fire was not only that, they've been there for 8 years before I showed up. You know, they have a machine that works. And they were like, this is a new piece. Will it vibe or will it not? And sometimes it's not your fault. Sometimes it is. But, you know, so that whole set, I've learned a whole other list of, like, a whole other slew of things where I recognize now, okay, I know how to get to set. Yeah. I know what my job is. I know how to be out of the way, but I also know how to ask questions and be in the way. At Chicago Fire, I've learned a whole other thing about, like, the professionalism they have. They still actively have conversations about the craft, and they're all artists like seeking to do other things. And it's been a cool perspective, because now I'm working with people that, you know, are adults. We were all like teens, but they are all like more adults. So they all have stories from things they've seen on set, instances they've learned, how to talk to directors. I've learned when someone wants to ask a question, and you never want to seem like, the worst thing you ever want to do is destroy collaborations. You never want to make someone feel bad about an idea or feel insecure about a note, or you don't want them to feel like they can't speak to you either. So I've seen actors be amazing with asking questions, being kind, waiting to find, Jesse Spencer is awesome to learn from, because he is a class act, an absolute professional. And anytime there is something that maybe he bumps on in a scene where a director's like, can you come here and do this? He's like, well, what we've learned with firefighting is we have to stay over here, and we can't do this way. What do you think if we do this, or do you have any ideas? And it's been really cool to learn how, as a lead, he can kind of sometimes be like, I don't think my character would, but it's always like a conversation. He's never, I don't know. I feel like I'm learning a lot.
Yeah.
And, it's a constant learning process.
What, so obviously on Chicago Fire, you're a firefighter, and that's a whole, you know, profession. But so what was the training like on that? I imagine for any role you're going to train, if it is like a real profession, like what was it like for Chicago Fire?
I did a lot of research on just like different firefighter gear, the history of firefighting in Chicago, starting with like the big change that happened with safety measures and stuff in Chicago after the fire of 1871. And actually the fire academy in Chicago is built on like where they believe that fire started. That kind of forced the whole city to examine itself. And it's actually pretty cool, because you saw how a city learns through failure. They were like, yo, we didn't have the right codes here, and a lot of terrible things happened. All right, we failed. Let's not let it happen again. Yeah. So it was just a cool thing. But I went to the academy for a whole day, and I trained with other what do they call them? Other like cadets that were training for their first candidates, other candidates. I got to speak to them, ask them questions. A lot of them, like family members, were firefighters, or it was something they wanted to do forever. And then familiarizing yourself with the gear. Like, if you're a professional with a piece of equipment, you should know how that equipment's used, when it's used, and then when it wouldn't be used as well. And we do as much as we can as actors. And then there's also, obviously, always someone on set to be there to say, hey, actually, we would hold this like this because the safety thing would be this way and whatnot. And you're like, okay, cool. And then there are times where they say, I know we would normally do it like this. That was a great instinct. But you're looking this way and the camera's over here. So you have to change that. That's not your fault. Yeah, and it's just cool, because with that show specifically, the community of first responders is so welcoming. And they love that we're telling their stories, but also that all of the people I've met care tremendously about making sure they're doing their best, because they are our everyday heroes. Like it's amazing. I mean, I just learned so much. I didn't know firefighters did half the jobs that they do on the daily. I didn't realize the things that they see, what they're trained in, how smart they are. It was like I discovered an entire new world. And I guess that's going back to like how acting helps you grow as a person. I discovered an entirely new world of people that are so vitally important to the fabric of our society that I knew nothing about, because I'd been so privileged that I didn't have to find them. You know, I didn't have to find out what they do, thankfully, you know?
Yeah.
So yeah, it's really cool. And that's another great thing about becoming an actor, is that pretty much for every role you do, you get to, you're literally a student for life, because every role you do, every person you do, you have to learn a whole bunch of things. I was talking to my girlfriend Tessa, and I was like, wow, to be an actor, you really have to like love obsessively learning about things. Like, just because you get a job as a firefighter on a show, it was so fun to then become obsessed with learning about that. Even the way they work out, what muscles are they trying to strengthen, the stamina they need, the fact that they do most things pitch black. Like in a real fire, if your house is on fire, you probably will not be able to see anything. I don't know, man. They're incredible people.
Yeah. No,
Yeah, sorry. Tangent again. I
no,
don't
no,
know, man. I'm
it's
sorry.
interesting. It's interesting. Giving the people what they want. Quick interjection. I did pin in the comments section a link to donate to Florida Children's Theater. Now, now more than ever, it is important. You know, I don't think theater and the arts should stop right now, especially not right now.
No,
So,
I mean, if anything, we've seen how a pandemic that can bring everyone together also allows us to really love art. Like, how many of us have been binging TV shows and
Right.
needing more things to watch and
right.
like missing going to museums and stuff.
Yeah.
Like, it's
Yeah.
such a vital. Yeah, it's so important to society. Art.
Yeah.
Some people don't recognize that.
Yeah. So if you guys can donate anything, everything helps. So
That would be awesome.
It's in the comments. Okay. So So for me, as your friend and as a observer, you know, I look at where you are, I look at where you are as you've made it, you've succeeded. But that's me, and I'm not a professional actor. So what would it take for you to feel like you've done what you wanted to do, and what are you continuously doing to work towards that goal?
Well, like I've always said that my goal is to be like 90 or 100 years old and die on set. Like I don't really ever want to stop working.
Yeah.
Because I mean, the day I stop telling stories, that feels like the day I die. So what am I doing to make sure that that becomes the goal, that someone will want me to work until that time?
No, oh no, you live until 100.
That I live until, okay, I'm working. No, I don't know. Right now, I'm taking in as many stories as I can. I'm trying to see what else. As many stories as I can. As you know, I have a book club. I read a lot. That's another way. That's actually one of the most important things I think actors can do is read. But yeah, it's a good question. I'm doing my best. I'm learning from the people above me, and I'm also trying to improve where I think I can see improvement. That's actually my dad always says this: the Army's definition of leadership relies. It's a two-part definition, and the second part, I'll remember the whole thing in a minute. But the second part talks about not only just doing the right thing, but also improving the organization that you leave behind. My dad says leadership is planting seeds that you'll never see grow into trees. That's what he thinks like true leadership is, right? So it's also trying to learn like, okay, what can be better? Like we live at a time when Hollywood got a big check of what could be better. Hey, there's a whole community of people, these women and some men as well, that are feeling that people are abusing power. That needs to change so that the industry can grow and become better. And thankfully, that started during our lifetime. And we will continue to find those ways. We will continue to tell more stories for people of color and other communities that we don't often hear from. You know, we want to like, that's what it is, just finding ways that we can continue to grow as people, as the industry. But then again, I've been working for 4 years, which in this industry means I'm like a baby. Like I still have so much to learn. And while that at times can feel kind of intimidating and annoying, it's also like so refreshing that I know that everyone that I see on set is still learning in some facet, whether it be, okay, it's my first day on set, let me just process what's happening, or it's my 30th film, but now I'm moving into being a director instead of an actor. I don't know. We'll see. But I guess it's just, what did you get from what I said?
No. Well,
like I just talked in a circle.
I was gonna say, I mean, I think it's interesting. Like, I know we already mentioned your documentary, but I think it's interesting that you are already trying to tell important stories and trying to kind of uncover unheard voices, and I think that's admirable. I mean, because a lot of people in your point in your career, I guess.
Well, it's because, like I said, I feel like I've learned just as much, if not more, from the people I've surrounded myself with. One of my best friends wrote a book about the Groveland Four, and he helped exonerate these men that unfortunately were, you know, wrongfully convicted of a crime that they didn't do. And it took him 4 years to do it, but he stuck to it. He worked really hard. He kept it going, and now he wrote a book on Amazon about the whole thing. And that's just one person that I was lucky enough to keep in my life.
This is about you. But where'd you go?
My laptop fell. There we go.
Okay. Oh, so one thing we sort of talked about before this, and I found it really interesting because I actually really remember this thing happening. So when we were in high school, it was you and me and probably Maddie Hart and Charlie and my brother, whoever it was. We watched a movie called Schenectady, New York.
Yeah. And Patrick, and I think Matt Bodkin was there too.
Oh, Matt Bodkin was probably there, yeah. And it's starring Philip Seymour Hoffman. I remember we watched this movie, and after we were like, what?
Yeah, I hated it. I remember watching it.
But you said you rewatched it. And
I've watched it 3 times now.
Yeah.
And every time now I kind of love it in a way that I still don't really understand what's going on. But I see stories being told in the filmmaking. I see stories being told in his performance. Like it's a movie that I think I'll have to watch another 2 times before I think I'm like, oh, okay. But then again, it might be one of those movies that just leaves you with questions on purpose. Like,
yeah.
Go figure it out. But that's also something important about art is sometimes it doesn't resonate with you right now. And I think I found that out with reading like books in high school. There were some books that I was like, oh, this book is amazing. And other books that I was like, I don't get it. Well, I've reread a lot of those books now, and the books that I thought were amazing, like Catcher in the Rye, the first time I read it, I was like, oh, Holden Caulfield, I totally get you. And then I read it in college, and I was like, what's this kid complaining about? And then now I just recognize that part of life, like being at that age and not really knowing things. And I don't know, it changes every time. So, yeah. All right, again.
To that point, though, in the same sense, like, because the way you've looked at that movie specifically has changed, but you also mentioned that when you watch shows like you were saying, The Outsider or, Mindhunter, something like that, you're sort of like looking at different things. You're trying to understand director's choices. You're trying to...
Well, like, that's the coolest thing about being on set, especially as an actor, is you are right up in the middle of everything that's going on. Other jobs on set, you aren't as close to it. But as an actor, you're literally right there with the camera guys and the first ACs and the director and the director of photography. Like, you're right there with all of them. And they're always talking about why they're making their choices and what they're trying to see. And because of that, movies have become, like, there's another dimension to them. I'm not just watching them for entertainment now. I'm not just watching them to see what the actor's doing. Now I can say, oh, wow, let's look at this writing and how this character's vocabulary grows throughout the film or changes. Or let's look at costuming. Like, have you ever seen the movie Garden State?
Yeah.
Okay, in the beginning of the movie, if you haven't seen Garden State, Zach Braff's character is, the first time you see him, he is completely serene as a plane is going through tremendous turbulence. So already, the first image, you're like, he doesn't fit in. Why? Everyone else is freaking out. There's a lady with a baby. She's crying. He's literally sitting there, and he turns on the air conditioning. And then the next shot, you see him. He's sitting all in white in a white bed, staring straight at the ceiling. The next shot, it's like totally overexposed, like all white. He's just, and then at the end of the movie, he's experiencing emotion. He's crying. He's dressed in colors with someone whose outfit, the first time you see her, Natalie Portman's character, is like very colorful compared to what he's wearing. So even in costuming, you can see the journey his character goes from someone that was numb to the world, literally white, plain, to someone who now can experience a whole range of colors. And if I spoiled that movie for you, I'm sorry. Diego's like, no spoilers. Well, I'm using it as a teaching thing here. But like,
30-year-old movie.
So like, the coolest thing about art that I also find is the more you learn about it, the more you enjoy about it, because just the depth that you can see. Like in Outsider, all of the scenes with Ben Mendelsohn and his psychiatrist are brilliant.
Yeah.
Because literally through the filmmaking there, through the shots they're using, they're telling a story. So like the one I think of is there's this shot where Ben Mendelsohn is sitting like this on the couch, and then the psychiatrist is like way in the background here, and he's not in focus. So all you see is Ben Mendelsohn thinking, but the psychiatrist is talking the whole time. Now, you generally don't see that. Most of the time on film, when a person's talking, they want to show you what they're saying. So that means it's a choice. So why? Oh, it's because Ben Mendelsohn is in his own head. He hasn't let the psychiatrist in yet. But then the psychiatrist says, like, asks him a question that was very personal, and he literally turns, and then it's a rack focus. So now the psychiatrist's in focus, which means now he's in Ben Mendelsohn's head. Now Ben Mendelsohn is actually like paying attention to him. And then the angle changes. Boom, different. Now the scene has begun between them. And that's just like one example, and I have so much more to learn, but that's one example of saying, wow, this show where I otherwise would have been like, this is super cool, has now gotten a whole other level of depth because of the other people that are telling stories. And then I'm trying to figure out directors of photography and lighting and how they tell stories that way. And that's a whole other world of like professionalism and expertise that I hope one day I'll grasp, because that's just, I imagine that trying to light I don't know. This is me geeking out. Sorry.
Well, no, and I think it's important to think about. I think another question I had, which kind of works into this, is while obviously I'm using all the cliches, we're in unprecedented times, and I think we're quarantined, we're we can't see anyone. We can't, for those of us that are pursuing acting or theater, or the students at Florida Children's Theater, you can't do anything. So what do you think people should be doing that do want to pursue acting? Like, is it,
easy.
Yeah, go for it. That's it.
I mean, yeah. Like, I'm not gonna lie to you though. I'm not gonna say I've been like the best person ever. I've been playing video games and chilling and just like relaxing also. But we live in a world in an unprecedented time where we have access to an entire slew of information at our fingertips, literally in our hands. Like it's an incredible thing. You made a joke about Masterclass, right? Oh, Annie, hey, okay, you made a joke about Masterclass, but Masterclass is a great thing. You can start to like enter different worlds by learning about business, or learning about writing a book, or learning about making cocktails, or learning, you can do that online. And then, like I said, you should just be taking in stories. I've watched all of Outsider. We watched Unorthodox, which is the story of a girl struggling with her Hasidic roots from Brooklyn. Brilliant piece of art. Brilliant work, and telling stories about people that we haven't heard about, or I hadn't heard about before. I didn't know this community existed. I didn't know about these people, and now I get to kind of get an entryway into their way of life, why they think the way they think, who they are, and that's one thing, one story that I'm like, oh, I want more stories about that community to be told. I want to learn more about them. It's just a never-ending journey. And then for me, literally, what I think every actor needs to be doing is reading. You need to be reading books, you need to be reading scripts, and you need to stop reading tweets as much. Like, one, they just make me really upset generally, so I hate being on Twitter, but my brother's saying empathizing is so important. That's what storytelling kind of does. Like, you see someone from a different world than you, and then you start to acknowledge the bits and pieces that make them similar to you while living in a completely different world, and then you realize, like, whoa, there's so much. There are so many people out. I don't know. It blows my mind. Like, if you drive down the street and you think about how many people you will never meet, all of those are individual stories with people that have stories that made them and literally made them. And then they have stories, and it just blows your mind. And then the fact that everyone everyone wants their story to be told, or wants to hear. I don't know. So what should you be doing? You should be reading books. You should be watching good movies. You should be watching bad movies. You should be watching television. You should be watching YouTube videos on how to do what you want to do. Like, that's not hard anymore. Like, it's all there.
Yeah. Well, and I think one of the things is, and we sort of talked about this, but you know, a lot of people have been saying like the idea of productivity is sort of different in this new world. I think that's true. But you know, we do have so much time, and we do have so much opportunity to, like you said, read everything, watch everything, and think about it. I mean, you can binge watch something pretty easily, mindlessly, but you know, if you think about it and take something from it, like you said, unorthodox, or like, for example, you know, Parasite. Like, I used to never watch anything that has subtitles really, because it's that much more work. It's an inch of work at the bottom of the screen. And like, but you are seeing these unique stories and hearing from these unique voices.
I think as Americans, we need to watch more foreign films, or films that aren't about Americans. Like, I mean, the films coming out of Latin America are absolutely incredible. A lot of the work we see in America is actually made in Canada. As we saw cinema in Korea and China, oh my gosh, like, I mean, when I studied in Argentina, and when you find out like the cinematic history in Argentina, how in the 40s they had just as big a film industry as the United States.
Yeah.
There's just so much out there. It's actually, what they say, everyone is born ignorant, but it takes hard work to remain ignorant. Like, in this day and age, it really does. Yeah. It really does. I think that's a Winston Churchill quote. Like, it's hard work to remain ignorant. Oh no, Mark Twain. I think one of those two.
You know what? I believe you either way. But no, and I think that's it's true. And like, you know, there are people like, I know Ava DuVernay, for example, is finding filmmakers like in Africa and Ghana, things like that, and kind of highlighting their voices too. And again, I know it's a different scale, but like, you know, I think your documentary, like you said, like we talked about, is important and does that on a domestic scale at least.
And that's another thing is, like, I was in a position where I had the privilege to support another artist. Like, that film I executive produced, but that came to me by the director of it, my brother, who was like, hey, I have this idea. I want to tell this story. I want to figure this out. Yeah. How can I do this? And I was like, I don't know, but I'm down to help. Let's do this together, because I think that's important. And that's something I do want to do more of in my life, is help other people tell stories.
Yeah. Well, and it's sort of going back, I guess, to, you know, hearing different voices through the arts, I guess, and through theater. I think what's interesting for me is like, and maybe it's for you too, but when we were at Florida Children's Theater, you know, we did get to, you know, like you said, Janet, you know, really sort of did a modern take on Aida. You know, we did Hairspray, which is obviously about, you know, segregation, integration.
Right.
And it covers a lot of things. Like, obviously, you know, we all are in school. You learn history on one sense, but then when everyone around you singing about it, it's like, oh, this is like you're put into that world, and you're.
Well, like, I get emotional thinking about it right now, but I think of that song, "There's a Light." Remember it? And I
wait. Can you sing it for us?
No, I can't. Not do it better than you know,
Queen Latifah.
No, I'm thinking who played. I'm sorry. What was her name?
David Wright's mom.
David Wright's mom. Yeah. What was her name again? Because I think about that. Just like, I agree. When someone's singing about it next to you with like a connection to it, and then you're all standing there, and you're like, no, you know what? I want to stand for the light at the end of the tunnel. Yeah, we're gonna get. You know, that song is so empowering, and it's and when you hear it like that, it does connect to you on a deeper level. You know.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think that is sort of, like you said, the power of theater and the power of doing, for us, doing for Florida Children's Theater at the time, and just like experiencing that and growing from that. What else do I have? I have two questions that I pulled from fans. One is from Maru.momo3.
Okay.
They said who has influenced the most. I guess we could say like acting wise or directing wise, or who have you watched and really learned a lot from.
I know as a kid, I would say like the movies. I loved Marlon Brando, but a lot of actors love Marlon Brando. He literally changed the style of modern acting. Like that, he was one of the people that was very vital in changing that, and you can see it in the way movies are made and how they changed. But I think the people that I have to really give the most credit to for this are my parents. My parents loved watching movies. My dad was a huge movie buff. He always knew the people and the directors and other movies they'd been in. He loved watching cinema, and my mom does as well. And that was like what I remember. Most of my memories with my family are us having dinner. We're having dinner watching a movie, or like we would go do that. And my parents were always extremely supportive of that.
Yeah.
So they were probably the biggest influences in seeing films and hearing stories be told. And I actually, so you know the movie Scarface, right? Okay. The movie Scarface is about, remember how he comes to Miami on a boat? Well, this was a time in the 60s when Castro was like, fine, Cubans want to go to the States? Fine, go. And he opened all of the prisons and he put all these Cubans on a bunch of boats and mixed them with prisoners and sent them to the U.S. I didn't know until I was watching that movie. And I was like, wow. I called my dad, and my dad was like, yeah, we had a couple of family members on those boats. And they actually had like communities where they would hold them until they figured out if they were an ex-criminal or just a citizen that got pushed on this boat. Yeah. And then either let them go with family or whatnot. The Mariel boat lift. Yeah, thank you, Mr. Seeger. And I didn't know that I had a couple of uncles that were on those boats for Mariel. And that's something I found out because of cinema. Because I wanted to ask that question. So I forgot what I was saying again, but there we go.
No, I mean, you're saying just basically about how you're influenced by your parents.
Yeah, and it just was in the family, and then I met other people that supported this flame of whatever that was I was lucky enough to go to the middle school I went to where I had a teacher, Mrs. Ryan, who saw that I liked acting and loved it and had maybe like a knack for it. It was like, you should keep doing it. Then I had Mr. Seeger in high school, who also was someone that was like, no, this is a career. This is a serious thing to be an artist. It's not just, and then because of him, I kept looking for other opportunities to act. And then I found FLCT, and then I found Janet, and I found you guys. And it was just a continual growing of that community, that sense of like, this is where I belong, that sense of I can do something important here, the sense of like, but also this is what gives me life. Yeah. Success or not, I'm gonna be acting. If it were still in Florida at FLCT, awesome. If it's here in LA, great. It was never gonna, it became a thing that I was like, I don't see a day where I stop telling stories. I mean,
yeah. Well, and I think in the same sense, like, not everyone has parents that love watching movies, that love telling stories, that love, and that's just the way it is. But I think for me too, like, I mean, my parents do like watching movies and stuff, so I was lucky. But for me too, finding Florida Children's Theater, obviously it's where we met, but it's so amazing finding like-minded people, people that were all, raised differently, have different backgrounds, are interested in different things, but at the end of the day come together in this, like you said, sense of community and sense of, we like this thing, let's do it together.
And that's another thing, like, I feel like growing up there were so many opportunities for us to be like, okay, I'm not going to do that anymore, from outside influence. Right. Whether it's, we did a show that I particularly felt that I was bad in. I was like, oh man, that didn't feel very good to not feel like I did my best.
Yeah.
Or the criticism you get from peers or people that should be in leadership positions in high school, where they have a big influence on how you feel about yourself and what you think is right as you're making the change from being like a dependent person to an independent person. But again and again, it comes back to that community that you hopefully find there, that says, you know, who cares if that person made fun of you? They're not going to be here on the night of the show anyway, so
Right.
have as much fun as you can. Or who cares if your football coach is going to make you like run extra sprints because you missed practice because you were auditioning for Les Mis? Like, you might,
for example.
yeah, for example, you might be on Chicago Fire one day, you know? Like,
Yeah.
it was one of those things where I'm really lucky that I had the community that I made through doing theater around me to support me anytime that there might have been a negative thought or an inkling that maybe this wasn't what I was supposed to do. I mean, my first day ever on a professional set when I worked on Blue Bloods was the worst day I've ever had on set. I won't disparage anyone, but I'll say that the director was having a lot of trouble and took everything out on me in front of all of the other actors and people on set. And if you've never been on set, anyone, there are like 50 to 80 people on set at one time, including background and whatnot. So to be a person that gets singled out for doing something wrong when it's your first job out of college, it literally made me question everything. I was like, did I pick the wrong career? I just graduated. I can't go back to college. Like, I can't afford it again. Like, what am I going to do? And then thankfully my manager was there, and then I talked to my parents and other people that were like, that's not the standard. And also, if you don't have the strength to get past one person, you won't ever do anything in your life. Not just be an actor. If you don't have the strength to get rid of one person's negative opinion, you won't be able to succeed in anything that you do. So that the community you build around you is really one of the most important things you have in life. The people that will bring you up, support you, inspire you, knock you down when your head gets too big. Those are people you need. Yeah. And I was lucky again. Yeah.
Yeah. I guess one of my last questions is, you know, I think you and I are interesting examples because we sort of did the same thing up until, you know, our senior years, and then went sort of, you know, did different things. Like I don't act anymore, but
that's not true. I heard you teaching a master class.
Well, you know, but what would you say to someone who, you know, is in the later end of high school, interested in theater, but doesn't know? And I know you mentioned Mr. Seeger kind of put you into like, this is a real thing, and Janet too, and like,
yeah,
you have those people really emphasizing that for you. And obviously you're talented, so it's like, yeah, you should do this. But what would you say to someone who's like unsure about if this is something they should pursue fully or not?
Well, like one of the coolest things that I think, there were two things that, one thing that I was really privileged to get, and that was that I did.
Oh, what did you call it? Left, by the way.
Okay, we'll be quick. I did programs at universities during the summer where I studied at I studied at Boston University and I studied at Brown acting. So I got to see the collegiate and then the professional and the, like, you know, when you go past just being in high school and doing plays, you're like, oh, I'm learning about craft. I'm learning about theory. I'm learning about what people think about acting and why it changed and the different ways that playwrights think about what their plays should be doing. Whether it's Shakespeare holding a mirror up to nature or Brecht being a hammer and chisel. You know, you learn that. Ask me the question one more time. I don't want to run out of time.
Just what you would say to someone who's like interested in pursuing this past. Like,
oh yeah, yes. And Courtney, it was Busty. Interested in pursuing this. Keep going. Sorry.
Like past high school and like full, you know, interesting.
Oh, well, one thing you learn, the more you learn about it, especially past like high school, is how many jobs are involved in making one piece of theater. I think one episode of television takes like over 100 people. You have everything from the actors to the writers to the set designers to the costume people to the props people to the lighting designers and the guys that actually move the lights. Then you have the DP, who's the guy that kind of does all that but worries about what you see on screen. Then you have the director, and then you have the producers, which you could talk about more. Then you have, like, there are so many jobs. There is room for everyone with any skill set. So don't be discouraged because you're not an actor or you don't think that's where you're going to end up.
Yeah.
That's not the important thing. The important thing is like this, we need to tell stories. So whatever your job is, that you feel like you can help tell a story, that there's room for you there. There's, I mean, on every set there's accountants too, because everyone has to get paid. You know, like in the film industry.
Should we just go live? Hey. All right. Hey, Ojo. Thanks for moving your. Let me bring this guy back. Sorry,
We're back.
The countdown is going. I was like,
okay. Oh, should we wait till kind of everyone jumps back in, or should we just start?
Yeah, we can wait. They jump. Oh, they're pretty much back.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
So I'm just gonna pick up from there. Tessa, good thing we had that little break, because Tessa like, turned back and was like, "This was the question." And remember, we talked about all these things. And I was like, "Oh, you're right.
Yeah.
Thank you."
I'll ask you again just for anyone who missed it. But I was just asking. So I was saying, for me, you know, I did theater a lot in high school and middle school. But when it came down to it, you know, I went to college. I studied other things. But there are a lot of people that that do want to do this, but are unsure about, you know, if they can really do it, or if, you know, what a path looks like for them, and et cetera, et cetera. Okay, back to you.
Yeah. So Tessa reminded me that I did have the experience when I first told my parents, like, I want to be an actor. And they were like, okay. It took me a while to kind of realize that. You know, it took my mom, really. I was thinking when I started like looking into colleges, you know, my dad's in the military, so I thought I wanted to go to West Point, which is the United States Military Academy. Actually, my cousin Sam just graduated from there, so go Sam. But it was something that I was like, that's what I want to do. So I was starting to explore those options. But I remember specifically the conversation was I came home one day, so excited. And my mom got home from work, and I was so excited to tell her this. I was like, Mom, guess what I found out? There's a community theater in West Point, New York, which means I can go to West Point and still do theater. And she just looked at me and started laughing. I was like, what's wrong? She's like, nobody goes to West Point thinking and trying to find ways to do theater. People go to West Point because they want to be officers in the United States Army. That's what they want to do, and they want to be the best at it. So that West Point's one of the places that they do that. You are still trying to find ways to act. Don't you recognize that this might be something that makes you happy? Something you... So it really was like prodding from my mom, but then I did have to do like soul searching and say, all right, what I'm going to be doing something every day for the rest of my life, because that's the society we live in, right? We all have things to contribute in ways that we can. And how am I going to contribute? What do I want to be doing? What do I feel good at? Like what, you know, everyone has that thing where you're like, you know, I love doing this because I feel good at it. Even if I'm bad at it, I feel great at it. And it was all of those things. But the one thing I realized was that I would have hated to have to give it up. I couldn't imagine not acting anymore. It really freaked me out. Almost like I can't imagine not eating.
Yeah.
I'm like, no,
well,
I can.
I actually read someone said something about, I guess they're talking about writing or acting or whatever, but they're like, you know, beavers, they chew wood because their teeth itch. And they're just, I mean, they also need the wood, but like their teeth are itching so much, they just have to do this. They have to do this. They need to get rid of that itch. And I feel like that's sort of what it is for someone who really wants to do.
Yeah, I mean, there's a part of me that remembers almost every show that I've ever seen, and every single time I saw a show, I was always jealous of the people on stage. Regardless of how good the show was, regardless if I think I could be in that show, like I always was like, God, this is so good. I wish I could be on that stage right now, man. I'm jealous of all those people having so much fun, and I'm stuck out here. like not a very logical thing, because I wanted to go see the show, obviously, but I think it's that. So if you're in high school and you're not sure what you want to do, first of all, I think we can all attest to you're in high school, you have plenty of time. No
If
one's
you're out of high
rushing.
school and don't know what you want to do.
You have plenty of time. Life is literally the longest and shortest thing you will ever do. You have plenty of time. Like, you hear stories of actors that started acting when they were 4 and haven't stopped, and you hear stories of actors that didn't start acting until they were 50, and now they've won Academy Awards. So it's not like, but then again, I do believe you have to put the work in. Like, that's one thing where I'm like, yes, people are talented and people can get lucky, preparation, opportunity, and they can achieve that. But I think to be where I want to be in the industry, I want to be someone that understands a lot, knows a lot, has done a lot. People want to work with because of skill sets, but also the other work that I've done has shown that I care about fundamental things and have I don't know, like, you know, it's an entire process of I want to learn everything I can about this entire medium of acting, which means theater, film, television, which means learning about what goes into writing and directing, learning that goes into producing. So if I ever have to do my own work, which Diego and I have now, we know what that process is like. I want to know everything. And I understand that that's not for everyone. Some people are like, no, I'm very content being the best possible actor ever. And that's great. But I'm like, I want to be the best possible actor ever. And I know that for me to know that, I have to know everything else too. I want to know why the director's like, hey, let's change the lens. I don't like the way that, let's go to the 50 instead of the 85, which I don't know if they would go that way. But, you know, like I want to know, like, wait, why did you change lenses there? What changes in what you're seeing that you needed something either tighter or wider? When they're like, like I remember my first day on set on Shadowhunters, the DP introduced himself. He was like, hi, nice to meet you. And he was looking at my face and he was going like, yeah. Can you guys turn down 122 about 20%? Perfect. Thanks, man. And he just walks away. And I'm like, why the hell did he just wave his hand in front of my face? Like, what is he? And then now I know it's because one light was either too sharp or was like, you know, it's all about light. Like here, you can see it. This light here and then gone. He's like, oh, this is that light. Cool. What is that light doing? I don't like it. Just little things. And then also like, I don't know. I feel like I'm just starting to ramble. So
No. I think what you're saying too is it's sort of, it obviously applies to, you know, being on set and being an actor, but I think it also falls into being interested in what's going on around you.
Yeah.
So whether you are an actor, whether you're, you know, sitting in an office or whatever, or sitting in a classroom, whatever it is, like there's always something going on. And in the same sense, there's always a unique story to tell. There's always a unique story going on.
Exactly. And then like I feel really lucky that every time I'm on, like I feel just as comfortable on set as I do at home. Yeah. Like I for me that's like, oh, I feel relaxed there. Like now anyway, not the first day I'm very nervous, right? But like now that I've been on like Chicago, they're all so awesome too that they made me super comfortable. Like the best work you get as an actor is when everyone's relaxed and having fun. You know, and I'm not saying that takes away from the professionalism of it, but when everyone's there to be like, hey, we're here to do something together, this is going to be great. Yeah. It ends up probably being that way. Yeah, I feel like you should try to find something that makes you geek out, something that you are a nerd about. Like, if you could make that your profession, you get to be a nerd for the rest of your life, and that's awesome. That means you're passionate. That means you care. It means you want to learn more. It's like that's the best compliment ever, I think. If someone's like, oh, you're such a nerd about that. It's like, hell yeah, I am. That's my shit. Excuse my language. You know?
No, I agree. I think, and that comes from, you know, I've been trying to read more as well, and like, I think that comes. I know.
Oh, good stuff.
I know. Matt Bach can be proud too. And I think, you know, when you are obviously reading is a story, obviously, and it's someone telling something, whether it's you know, about a war or about a time in history or about a, you know, experience, whatever it is. Like it's wait, I just lost my train of thought, but whatever. I've been trying to read more, and it's just, that's how you kind of uncover a lot of things, and maybe that's how you find out even what you are interested in geeking out over.
Yes. And that's the thing, like, I didn't know I would like trying to make movies until I started learning about the people making them and about making them. And I was like, you know, I want to do that one day. That looks awesome. I get to tell a story from an even greater perspective of just the person that's literally told where to stand and what to say and what to wear. Like that, okay, the choices as an actor you have that are very important, but at the end of it,
Sorry,
cool. Someone was like, for the shot, you need to stand here, and I need you to look this way, and you're gonna wear this costume because this is what, and you're like, cool. Sometimes you get to collaborate with that, sometimes you don't. Sometimes it's like, okay, like Blake Gallo, he's a firefighter, so I know he's wearing a uniform. I don't get any say in the uniform because the uniform is uniform. But yeah, I would love to get a bigger part of that storytelling, you know. And I don't know. I'm talking a lot and saying the same thing, but I guess it's just like back to the original question that started this whole convo. For anyone curious and uncertain about where they want to be in life, you need two things. You need to objectively like make a plan, like objectively think like, what am I good at? It's like takes a while. It's not like you're going to be like, oh, I'm just going to do this. Maybe you are, but I know for me, it was like I had to think about what I wanted to do, what I wanted my life to be like what did I want to be doing? What was I going to be proud of at the end of my life? You know, all of that. Yeah. Also, I was in high school. What does that even mean? Yeah. But I think also you have to have the courage to commit. You have to have the courage to be like, you know what? Like, I don't like when people refer to acting as the acting thing. You know, I'm gonna go to LA, try the acting thing for a couple years. And I'm like, hey, you know what? I'm going to walk into Cedars-Sinai and try the doctor thing. See how that goes. No one does that. You have to study for years and years and years to be considered a professional doctor. And you have to get licenses and certifications and whatnot. Every human, I think, because of their humanity and experience, has the potential to become an actor. Yeah. Because naturally, most people don't realize that you act every day. It's interesting. Actually, I saw a quote from Mad Men, where it's an old Japanese saying where a man is whatever room he's in. So it's like you kind of change who you are based on what room you're in naturally, right? Where was I going with this? You need the courage to commit. And that's the thing, like you just need to be able to say, you know what? It is really empowering when you do finally say, yeah, that's who I am. That's what I want to be. And that doesn't mean it won't grow or change. It just, this is it, you know? Yeah. And it can grow and change too. That's another cool thing no one tells you about life. Like you're allowed to change your mind and you're allowed to learn things. And yeah, especially like, I think that's one of my favorite things with, I think, politics and having good, healthy conversations about things like that is that if you're having conversations to learn and not just to prove that you're right, you might actually learn something and you might actually change your mind, or you might actually change someone else's. You might educate them in a way. And it's not only our responsibility as people to do that, but it's also our responsibility as people to listen and understand. Like not just say, oh, I'm right, I know this is right. Yeah. Well, that's like, funny. Well, yeah, continue. Sorry. No, I was going to say that's funny because, you know, I feel like that's also applicable to acting because it's like you're memorizing lines. Of course, you're like, okay, here's my line. I say it after this, I say it after that, yada yada. But if you're also like listening to them and responding versus just saying what you were planning to say, like I don't know how it is for you, but no, that's definitely it. like on Chicago, they're all hilarious actors, great comedic actors. Like they're just all so fun. But if you're not listening sometimes, you'll miss some of the best stuff that happens. Like, because maybe that's not written in, but they'll make a joke there. And you originally said something a certain way, but now that it's a joke, you got to be like, oh God, I can't say it the same way I did it last time when I was like scolding or staying out of it. Like this is, and sometimes you can't even help it, which is kind of the best acting is when you feel like you weren't. Yeah. Like, you're like, oh God, I actually thought that was hilarious. And thankfully my character agreed. No, and I think that goes back to it too of like even when you're playing a character, you have a story to tell too, and you have a story you're bringing to it, and like
in a way, you are leaving Alberto at the door when you step into play Gallo, but at the same sense, you are bringing in,
He's
what
right.
else?
The only thing, I said this once in college. I don't know if someone said this to me or if it's what I believed, but I think as an actor, you're only as good as your opinions and your observations. Like, I don't know, like, if the way you feel about things, like, who you are is all you can ever really bring to a role. Like, let's go for Shadowhunters, for Simon. I auditioned for that role 3 different times. And that was in New York, just sending tapes in and then maybe going into a room. Then I got to do what they call the test, where they flew me to Los Angeles and I auditioned 3 separate times there. But every time I was in there, the first time the room had like 20 people in it. There were like 7 girls auditioning for Clary, 8 girls auditioning for Isabel, 8 guys auditioning for Simon, all in the room. The next room I was in, there were 4 guys auditioning for Simon. The next room I was in, there were 2 other guys and me. But at the end of the day, I got that role. Like, so in my mind, I think that one was mine. Other roles were the other guys. This one was mine because I have whatever it is they want me to bring to this. And no one else was going to get that from me. That wasn't my, like, all the roles that I don't get, because like, you audition for so much that you never see. And unfortunately, sometimes it's stuff that never gets made, and you're like, oh, that would have been really cool. Even if I wasn't in it, I wanted to see it. And sometimes even worse, it gets made, and the guy in it is really great, and you're like, oh, man, that was a good movie. I would have done great, but he was great. You know, you can't ever take it away from someone. But I never think that was, I never say, oh, man, that was my role. I'm like, no, that wasn't mine. That was his. Mine is somewhere to come. It'll be there. There's room for everyone, and I am the only person. I can't say I'm the only Alberto Rosende. I'm the 3rd, but I'm the only Alberto Carlos Rosende the 3rd. So I have stories to tell, and I will have my place. Like, I know it. So when that comes, I don't know.
Yeah, no, and that makes perfect sense.
Yes.
And I know we already said this, but as we sort of close it off, for people that do want to do this or just get into the industry, whether it's, tell their story in some way, like, could they, I think the way that, on the other hand, the way the entertainment industry is moving is sort of like, nobody really knows, like, when they're going to shoot again, when things are going to happen, when whatever. But in the ideal world where it opens back up to normal,
right?
Should these people just be writing down all their stories and their dreams and their whatevers and just find their outlet for telling their stories? I know obviously we talked about reading, we talked about watching movies.
Yeah.
But, people that want to audition for, like, are there ways that they can, like, should they make their own movies? Should they, whatever it is, like.
Great question. When Diego was in his sophomore year of college, my younger brother, anyone that doesn't know, he approached me. I had just done season 1 of Shadowhunters, and we talked about this a little bit. He was literally like, my junior year, which in college, like, your junior year is kind of the beginning of you looking to being like a real person. You were like, great, I become an adult when I finish this process. What should I be doing? What do I want to be doing? Starting that whole world again where you're like, oh gosh, I have to focus. So he asked me, he's like, what should I do? Should I join a writer's room and work as like an intern and try to be a sponge and learn as much as I can there? Should I become a PA on set and try to learn from that perspective? Should I just start writing? Should I make movies? What should I do? And I asked him, like, what do you want to do? Like, what is your goal in life? When you're 50 years old and you look back at your life, you're like, wow, I've spent 30 years doing, what do you want that to be? And he was like, oh, I want to make movies. And Diego, if you're listening, and this isn't exactly how the conversation went, I'm sorry. But he was like, I want to make movies. And I was like, then make a movie. Yeah. The only way to learn is by doing. And the only way to really learn is by, failing. So do it now when you're in high school. And hopefully you get to show your friends.
Yeah.
And if it is great, awesome. Like YouTube, it'll be there and people will get to see it. And if it's not, awesome. You got to make something and you got to learn. You got to be like, okay, I learned that didn't work. Why? How can I make it work next time? What
Yeah.
will be better? Oh, like that's just the process for everything, right? Like
Yeah.
even playing Fortnite, how do you get better? By getting destroyed by people that are way better than you. And you see how they did it. They're like, oh my gosh, they built ramps over me. And I got so turned around that by the time I was dead, I didn't even know they were there. How do I do that? You know?
Yeah.
And then, I mean, Tarantino says he didn't go to film school. He just watched really good movies.
Yeah.
Oh gosh, who's the guy that directed Citizen Kane?
Orson Welles.
Orson Welles, that was his first movie. If you look it up when he says, what did you do to direct Citizen Kane, he literally references watching another movie every night. He's like, I watched that movie every night to do Citizen Kane. Because that also is like another quote, like good artists borrow, but great artists like steal ideas. Like, and I think you can see that in movies where you see, let's say like in The Dark Knight, in the opening scene with Heath Ledger wearing that clown mask. That clown mask is throwing back to Cesar Romero playing. Right? So there are these references to all these other artists in art that I think is so cool. Because it's like, yeah, you guys influenced me and I thought what you did is cool, but this is how I do what you did. You know? And that's such an important process. So if you think you want to be a writer, start writing. No one has to read it yet. If you want to be an actor, start telling stories. I mean, you can go online and Google plays. I mean, I understand that there are copyright things, so I am not advising you to illegally seek out any sort of literature. But we do have an internet that has everything that if you type the name of it in PDF, it probably pops up. You can. I've done this with friends where there was a play by Annie Baker that I've wanted to do forever, but I couldn't. I haven't done it yet, so I invited like 3 acting friends over, and we all sat around a table and we read it together. And that was something you could do. I mean, you can even find movie scripts from old movies you like.
Yeah.
And then in there, I would just say, don't try to like impersonate the actors doing it. Don't try to be like Tony Montana. Don't do the Al Pacino thing. Just think of who Tony Montana was, where he came from, what he did in Cuba to make a living, to survive.
Yeah.
And then now he's in this new place and he's going to do the one thing he's always known he can do. You know, but also he has this need to like prove himself. And I don't know. Then that's where I start obviously geeking out. Like, oh my gosh, this is everything behind this guy. So there's so many, and if you want to make a movie, make movies. I remember Diego was doing that when we were kids. He got a camera, and I remember he didn't put it down forever. He was making little videos in the backyard and stuff. So
well, and we all have cell phones that record in 4K, like that.
I mean, what director is making movies on iPhones? With Claire Foy, there was one that just came out. Steven Soderbergh. Did Soderbergh make movies on iPhones?
Maybe. I mean, there's been a couple that have like done well at festivals too.
Yeah, I mean, there's no excuse. We live in the.
Yeah.
I talked to a casting director recently, and we were talking about how everything is opening a streaming service. TV is still there. There's no better time ever to be an actor than right now, just because of how much stuff is out there and the ability for you to self-produce. Like, there's everything out there for you right now. There's literally no better time.
Yeah.
And I'm like, that's true. Like, there's no excuses anymore. Like,
well, and actually, I wanted to call out a couple of things Matt Bodkin just said. First of all, libraries have scripts. Libraries
thank you. Yes.
You know, I read a lot of library books in the New York Public Library on my phone with a different app. So like, you can't go to a library, which nobody can right now. You know, there are the resources there. Also, Quibi, which Matt's question was how long before Quibi takes over the market. It could be any day now. But, you know, you look at their episodes of 5 minutes long. Like, you can do short content. You can do whatever you want, you know.
For sure. Like, you got to start somewhere. And then there's, I love quotes. I'm a quotes guy. So, how do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time. How do you run a marathon? One step at a time. You know, you can't think, oh my gosh, I got to eat this whole elephant. Don't even worry about that, man. That's way too big to think about. Just take a bite, and then take another bite, and then take another bite. And next thing you know, you're like, oh wow, I actually kind of got through this. How am I still hungry?
Well, and you know what? what was also mentioned was that, to go back, Florida Children's Theater is offering virtual classes. I mean, for example,
Awesome.
we're also offering, I'm going to butcher this, but you know, a class on making commercials from home. So you are, you know, getting that experience. You are basically having a teacher say, this is what you're going to do, now do it. So if you can't hold yourself accountable to do it, you know, there are places, you know, like Florida Children's Theater that will, you know, give you those opportunities and have you write and teach you the basics of everything. So just to sort of end on that note, we have, unless you have anything else you want to say, Alberto.
I was actually. It's funny you saw that. I did have one thing I wanted to add. Oh, but no, I just want to tie that back into community. Like, get people around you that support you, that make you feel jazzed, that have like a bunch of ideas and opinions around you that are different. If there's a group of people around you that are like, yo, that's an awesome idea, let's do that. You want more people like that around you. You don't want people that are like, that's dumb. We don't like stuff like that. It's like, well, I do, so we can still be friends, but I'm gonna find people that want to do at least this part of my life with me. Like, we'll figure it all out, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. So, sort of on that note, like in closing, you know, we're talking because we both went to Florida Children's Theater, and we both, you know, had an amazing experience there and really developed as, you know, actors in Alberto's case and people in both of our
people. I think more importantly is people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So as I mentioned right now, you know, any donations that you can offer are greatly appreciated. On another note, let me throw this up. As a continuation of this series, oh, I don't even know if you can see this that well. FLCT is hosting a conversation with Allison Horde. She is an alum who is now a writer for Late Night with Seth Meyers, a 3-time Emmy nominee. She's on screen as a featured actor too. So, and that's on May 28th, I think. I can't see the date.
Yeah, it's 28th.
So please feel free to tune into that. I think, you know, we wanted to talk to people who are, you know, kind of experts in their field. Alberto as one, and
call me an expert.
In my opinion. In my opinion. And, you know, Allison Horde is another. So please tune in. I'm gonna put that down now. I don't know how to use this app. But thank you guys for joining us. Alberto, obviously, thank you for your time.
No, man, you know, I'm honored to be here. Anything for Florida Children's Theater, as we talked about, such an important part of our lives. And in any instance, giving back is incredibly important. So any way I can help.
And guys, please go to flct.org. That's where you can find out about all the classes that are being offered right now virtually. But there are some amazing things that I was even thinking of taking too, and I am not a theater student. So it's really out there for everyone, and I highly encourage it. So thank you guys for tuning in, Alberto. Sure, we'll talk in 3 minutes, I'm sure.
Yeah, probably.
Thanks, everyone.
All right, goodbye, guys.